It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, April 28th, 2025, and y'all know what that means. Next week is Cinco de Mayo, but also it's time to get nerdy, y'all. Hold on, did I say Tuesday?
You did.
Yeah, let's
look, for like nearly 300 episodes, it was always
it's
Tuesday.
Muscle
now
memory.
It's Monday.
Should I start over, or should we just include
No, we just keep this, man.
Okay, we'll keep it. We'll do it live. It's Monday, April 28th, 2025. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 340 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. My name is Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my bestie, my comrade in gaming commentary. He has a new background today. The Miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, it's been not 1 week, as a certain band would say. It's been 2 weeks since we've recorded together. How have you been?
I have been all right. Lots of crazy stuff happened over the past couple of weeks. Some of them relatively tame. Obviously, spent some time with some people in the Midwest, yourself included.
Yeah.
Also got home, got resituated, had a couple of fun visitors. My parents came out to visit and played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time ever.
No way.
They did,
That's awesome.
yes. So I'm sure I've said before, we teach a D&D class at the local library. And so my parents were in town, and they were like, you know what? I think we'll try it. Now, keep in mind, these are the same people in whose basement, when I was growing up, we would play D&D for hours on end. At the end, they were like, it flew past with us. There's a moment that's going to live rent-free in my head forever, though, where my mom and my dad are sitting next to each other, and it's just like, all right, it's time to name your characters. And my mom comes up with a great fantasy name. It's fantastic. And my dad, I think maybe he was going for the jokes, was just like, all right, I'll be Bob. And then my mom gives him a little glare and says, honey, this is a fantasy game, so that better be B-O-B-B at the very least. Take this seriously.
I feel like this is a made-up story.
No, this happened, and there are witnesses.
You played D&D growing up with your parents? I didn't know that.
No, not with my parents, but in their house, in the basement.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, but this was the first time they come. So they've been like adjacent in the neighborhood,
sure.
But first time they ever tried it, played it, was on a visit out. It was frankly a magical experience. And I heard mom, I don't know why people said it was all about devil worship back in the day. Same, Mom.
Told ya.
Yeah, that's the real highlight from the last little bit.
That's dope, man.
How about you, man?
The highlight for me, I was going to say you coming out here and hanging out was the highlight.
Oh.
But apparently, D&D with your parents trumps coming out
Hey.
to do all the fun stuff we did while you were here. I'm just kidding, man.
Look, no, it was so many fun things. Look, we could just spend an entire episode's length doing nothing but talking about all the cool things we got up to while I was over there. I just don't want to make people feel so bad for missing out. You want to talk about the amazing time we had standing in line to get in?
I mean, we can. To me, that was not the most fun part of the time, but...
some of us had foresight and bought our tickets in advance.
That's me.
Others didn't and was just going to pay day of. And so there we are standing in line. And then they're like, oh, no, you can't be in this line if you haven't already bought your tickets, sir. You need to go to that line over there on the other side and pay. One person in line in front of me in that other line. The line Lam and I standing in twice around the building. Me, I walk up, got my thing right there, and I'm like, no, this is terrible. I can't leave my friend behind.
He did not leave me behind. It's not safe to go alone, as they say, in the video games. I will say this. I'm pretty sure, and I didn't tell you this at the time, that by pre-ordering, I think my ticket was cheaper.
Oh, it definitely was. It was.
Yeah.
Oh, but was it like 20 minutes in line cheaper?
Probably. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. Like, I think it was $5 or $10. It wasn't a huge deal. But the thing about standing in line is it's like we were having conversation. You know,
Yeah,
it's not
it
like
was
you're
nice.
standing in line and you're angry, you know, watching everyone go down a roller coaster while you wait. It's more like conversation and you know, stereotypical nerd smells. Like, let's just call it what it is, from people other than myself and Maction. Speaking of which, public service announcement: gamers, I am one of you. I love you. We have to do better. Like,
Yes, we have to do better.
we have to do better in that regard. I believe they were handing out deodorant at the convention.
Yeah, you could have availed yourself. Additionally, you know, I don't know if it was your experience, but, you know, not to be too disgusting, but in the bathroom, as I'm washing my hands, I see several people, by several, I mean more than 10, walk out without even going through the perfunctory motions. We can do better. Other people are handling those joysticks, people. Come on.
Yeah, literally, there were arcade machines that I sanitized my hands after playing because I knew they were not clean. Mac, it was a fantastic weekend. We really could talk about it for a whole episode, but we won't do that. Midwest Gaming Classic was a blast.
It was.
And it may not be an every year thing, but we'll do it again, and we'll tell you all about it. Mac, just for the sake of time, though, man, I say we do what we do best. And we hop right up in that gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Let's do. Mr. Nice Guy, what's new in Vidgy Gaming?
There is so much. And by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to our good friends, Mets Girl and Uncle Ruckus, for stepping in and helping with co-hosting duties while I have been gone the past 2 weeks. I listened to those episodes, and they both did a phenomenal job. Mets Girl, a Two Nerds veteran. Ruckus, Two Nerds first timer, and we appreciate you both. So, Mac, first news story of the day. This is on PCMag.com. It's about the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, for those who don't know, we did just do an episode on the Nintendo Switch 2 while Mac was at my house for the Classic. We recorded it live. There was a lot of info. Some things have changed. We're going to talk about pre-orders, and then we could talk about stuff that has changed since then, Mac. So,
Yeah.
this is, who is this written by? K. Thor Jensen is the name of the author. And he writes, Nintendo's Switch 2 console went up for pre-order on April 24th, and unsurprisingly, it was a big deal. Retailer sites crashed and pre-orders sold out quickly. If you missed out on the initial rush, don't give up. It's not over yet, and one major online retail hasn't even opened up pre-orders yet, so there's absolutely still going to be Switch 2 machines available for savvy shoppers. Mac, he goes on to say that there are ways to track the orders. It also says that Nintendo has a stockpile, reportedly, of over 1 million Switch 2 consoles already stateside in preparation for purchase, and we don't know how many were allocated to each individual retailer. Mac, this is a typical case of supply and demand, and candidly, it's a typical case of Nintendo. Before we get into some of the other things that have changed since we recorded that episode, namely tariffs, which I think may have happened the day after, you know, I don't want to talk about supply and demand, but I do want to talk about day one console. Thoughts on ever purchasing a day one console, and thoughts on the intentional scarcity that comes. It's not 2020 anymore. They have chips.
Well, then again, you know, I mean, they had chips back with the NES Classic, which I'm still bent out of shape about, and because they had themselves a website to register, they had good numbers on the rough demand levels for the NES Classic back in those days.
Right.
They had the chips, they had the numbers, they chose to distribute at a low enough level that scalping was such a huge part of that saga. Anyway, I'm still bent out of shape about that, but not a big fan of the artificial scarcity. Day one console releases, though. Look, I used to go to like Black Friday at the stores and such, and there is undeniably some energy that you get, or like when we went to the Midwest Classic, the energy that you get from being in the same room as so many people who love so many of the same things as you do.
Right.
Fantastic. And if my nearest neighbors weren't cows, I would absolutely join them at the local place to buy, whether that's GameStop or wherever, to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever day one console that I felt. I'd love to be in line at a establishment to pick up my pre-orders of a game console.
Mac's literal neighbors are cows, just to be clear.
Yes.
He's not referring to people disrespectfully.
Oh yeah, no. Guernseys, for the record.
Mac, I almost agree with you, but there's part of me, just because of different experiences that I've had on Black Friday, that says ship it to my house.
Who hurt you on Black Friday?
You know, I may have caught an elbow in the face a decade ago trying to grab some DVDs at a Walmart.
I understand.
Probably more than a decade ago. But I like the idea of getting something day one. I don't like the idea of going out to purchase a console in person day one. And I did do it with the Nintendo Switch. I did do it with the PlayStation 4. But I'm kind of at that point where, you know, I'll order it on Amazon and I want you to deliver it to my home. Now, when it comes to individual games, it's one thing. There's a lot less artificial scarcity when I want to go get Tears of the Kingdom with my sons or my daughters at a GameStop at a midnight release. But with consoles, I just feel like it can be kind of risky. I live in a totally safe area, but I just don't want to go out and do that. I just want to get it, I want to set it up, and I want to play. You know, and additionally, the Switch 2 just it hasn't done anything to excite me at this point. Now, Mac, I know that when we recorded that Switch 2 episode, I believe it was the day after, if I'm not wrong, that the pre-order link went down. Or had that happened by the time we recorded? I can't remember.
It was hours or minutes after we recorded, the news dropped that pre-orders were going to be delayed.
Correct.
So, gosh, so if is that what you mean?
Yeah, because, you know, it was the tariff situation with different countries being charged a higher percentage on the goods that are being imported.
Yeah.
And Nintendo and others saying, we don't know how this is going to affect the price of our product. We can't in good conscience allow you to pre-order it at the price point we've said and then raise it after the fact. So, Mac, any thoughts on that generally?
On the one hand, I will say I do like the idea of that being very forward with the, hey, we don't want you to have to pay extra money after you've already put some money down or after we've agreed on a price. That seems like a bad business move or at least an unfair idea. And I will give them credit for that. That is worth highlighting, that I think that was the right move for them to wait until they knew a little bit better what exactly was going to be exempted or included in tariffs so that they could give a accurate price in the first place. I do respect that. But because as I understand it, right, the console itself is exempted, but some of the peripherals are winding up having a tariff price bump. Is that where we are? Or I could be way out of it.
I didn't know that. I assumed it was the console itself, but I could be wrong.
Well, I guess the real question would be, you know, what the pre-orders started, they started doing that sort of limited pre-order bit a few weeks or last week or whatever. But do we know what price they're pre-ordering at and if that was affected?
I believe they're $4.99, and this is crazy. I have a video game podcast, and I haven't followed it very, very closely at all.
You're a busy man.
Well, and the Switch, too, I'm just not that excited for it. I mean, we have 2 Switches here in the Nice Guy household. They don't really get used a lot.
And also, it's fair to say that every time we record this show, what we say about the Nintendo Switch 2 price has been changing. Every time we've been checking in with our last 2 episodes with guests, it's been very up in the air. So, like, you know, where is the situation on the ground now?
Yeah. You know what, man? I got to say this about the artificial scarcity.
Yeah.
Some companies really, really get hated on for it. Analog is one of them. And I might say that the Analog Pocket at this point, the handheld that I use the most and that I probably love the most, like lately I've even used it more than my Steam Deck. But the artificial scarcity level that they have come to be known for is just ridiculous. As a business practice, I don't know if I like the ethics behind it, but I get it, right? When there's something that's more scarce, it's more wanted. When I see that I want to go do X, Y, or Z and there's only 1 ticket left or 1 slot left, I'm a lot more inclined to get that immediately, and I feel like a winner if I snag it. But if there's a ton of it available, I'm just not as excited. It's a psychological thing, and I think Nintendo is using that to their advantage.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. When the options you present are, do you want this amazing handheld game, or do you want me to burn your house down? It's not surprising that people go for the first
option. Mac making reference to my old jokes, which I appreciate and love and respect. Thank you, Mac. Well, yeah, anything else you've known that has happened with the Nintendo Switch since we recorded, or should we move on to the next news topic? I'm down to talk about this forever.
Same, dude. Yeah, let's move on out and wait until the dust settles.
Let's move on. And this next news story is strictly for me. I don't care if you like it or don't like it, listeners.
Okay.
I love y'all, but this is for me. Y'all know my favorite gaming IP of all time, Splinter Cell. And it's clear, according to this article on GameSpot.com, written by Evan Campbell, that Ubisoft shows it hasn't totally forgotten about Splinter Cell. Here is what he writes. Almost 12 years after launching, Splinter Cell Blacklist now supports Steam achievements. Ubisoft has added the functionality to the stealth game and promises they will work retroactively for players. On Steam, the company added that it's removed 19 achievements that required online services that are no longer available for the game. As such, it's still possible to achieve 100% in Splinter Cell Blacklist, a game that originally launched in August of 2013 on PC, PS3, Xbox 360, where I played it, and Wii U. Yes, it actually hit Nintendo's console. Mac, this is super interesting to me because I don't know of anyone who is begging for achievement support to be added to this 12-year-old game.
Yeah, us Splinter Cell heads, what we were asking for was a Splinter Cell-themed gacha game, and we did not get that. Ubisoft, you have left us behind. Where is the gacha monetization of Splinter Cell? Please, the people demand.
Dude, I would take a Splinter Cell Netflix series or a Splinter Cell movie over any of this stuff. You know, I would take like some belated DLC, which I know will never happen. Mm-hmm. This game is $7.50 right now, $7.50. I'm tempted to pick it up because it's literally been over a decade since I've played it, and I loved the game when I played it. Like, I had so much fun playing Spies vs. Mercs, and to me, that would be the thing to bring back, is the online access rather than achievements. Mac, have you ever heard of a situation like this where they've added achievements to a game and then made them retroactively achievable? In other words, one of the achievements may be complete the game. And if you already completed the game, that achievement's going to pop for you immediately now that that achievement has been added, if that makes sense.
Not a computer programmer, but it makes sense to me that if your achievements are something that just look for is condition A, B, or C met, that it sounds very plausible that the technology exists and we could make it happen. But nice guy, I did have a question for you.
Yeah, what's that?
You said something about a Splinter Cell, movie. Are we getting Lev Schreiber, or are we getting Ironside to be the voice?
You know, I mean, are we talking an animated movie?
Yeah, animated movie.
Then, yeah, we got to get Ironside.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I believe the only reason that he was not a part of Splinter Cell Blacklist is because they wanted to do motion cap, and his age and physical ability would not allow him to do that. So they brought in a younger actor who could do all of the acrobatics and then use that person's voice to keep it as quote-unquote realistic as possible and for consistency. Mac, if we have time, I want to share one last news story with you.
Absolutely.
Because this is super interesting to me. This is about a new StarCraft game being on the way, but not from Blizzard. And this is on PCGamesN.com. Written by Will Nelson. If you've been waiting for a new StarCraft game, it looks like your prayers have finally been answered. Your players have been answered too. A new report alleges that Nexon, a South Korean publisher behind games like The First Descendants and Dave the Diver, is working with Blizzard on a new entry in the sci-fi RTS series after entering a bidding war for the IP. StarCraft isn't the only Blizzard series Nexon is working on, as it's also being reported that the studio is helping to release Overwatch Mobile. Earlier this year, Asia Today reported that the StarCraft IP was up for grabs. 4 major video game companies, Nexon, Netmarble, Krafton, and NCSoft, supposedly put their names forward to work on the iconic RTS game series' next venture, and it's been quiet since then. Mac, bottom line, this company supposedly won the bid. And it sounds like the bid may not have been solely money-based, but more put together a proposal for Blizzard and help them understand why you are the ones who should work on that IP. I would imagine that money also accompanies it.
Sure.
What do you think about such an iconic franchise, you know, something that hasn't been visited in new form in over a decade being done by someone other than the original creators.
So they must have had a heck of a demo reel to go with that. You
Right.
know, why they should have be on the new season of Big Brother. I think that we've seen some very good games come in a established franchise from the fresh ideas of a new studio.
Sure.
It isn't always the case, but it does happen sometimes. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll wind up getting a beloved new installment. And, StarCraft, we had the first one in 98, and then, StarCraft 2 in 2010. And then I think the last...
Yeah, so just to finish that for you, that sentence, StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void 2015, and then StarCraft Remastered, which is not a new game, but in 2017. At least that's what this article says.
Sounds about right to me. Blizzard wants to have a good StarCraft game come out. At the same time, though, let's not forget that Blizzard can be a little bit tone deaf at times. Like, for example, on that launch of Diablo, and they're like, "What? You guys don't have phones?" When everybody was asking for a PC thing. So, like, this could go very bad.
Well, especially with this company being the ones making Overwatch Mobile. I hope that they're not thinking of making a StarCraft mobile game, at least not one that is solely mobile, right?
Yeah.
This could totally reinvigorate the StarCraft community and some of the RTS community because it was a pretty competitive game back in the day. I agree with you that we have seen some fresh ideas make franchises good, but I don't know if anyone is really saying that Halo 4 is better than Halo 3. I feel like maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but once that IP got moved from Bungie to 343, it's still great, but I don't think that it's ever viewed as being as good as the originals. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens here. Mac, that's been our news for the week, unless you have another comment you wanted to make.
No.
Yeah, you did. Say it, Mac. I messed up the intro. We can do stuff out of order. What did you want to say?
No, I was just going to say, did Halo Infinite, was that one done by...
Yeah.
No.
All the new ones
people?
all the new ones have been done by 343. So I think Halo 4, Halo 5. I could be wrong about Halo 4. And Halo Infinite all done by 343. Once Bungie lost the 10-year agreement that they had with Microsoft.
I've played 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and Infinite. I didn't mind 4.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I really liked Infinite. So I was just going to ask, I was just like, did it go to another one? But at the end of the day, cautiously optimistic, fingers crossed. I hope you get everything. I hope you get something worthy of your love of StarCraft.
For those who love it. That's been our news for the week.
Well, now we turn to the past for a little bit of gaming history. Mr. Nice Guy, we've had a couple of cool things happen this past week in years before. I'm going to save the best for last, a title from the Nintendo 64 in 1999 that I know that you love.
Okay.
Super Smash Bros.
Ooh.
But... let's start with a couple of games. One of the things that's very interesting is that for a huge chunk of time, the video game industry was very tied into this cycle of wanting to release their big games close to the holiday season. In October, November, December, so that you would buy at those times. That's when we got a lot of console releases. That's when we got a lot of game releases.
Right.
And so a lot of times in April, May, June, you'll get a lot of fantastic PC games. And that's kind of the way it is sort of today for the release of PC in 2012, a game called Dear Esther. Have you heard of this one before?
When you said deer, I thought you were talking about the animal.
Oh.
I have never heard of this game.
It's an adventure game. I've heard it described as a bit of a walking simulator. It's a bit more slow-paced, relaxed, and you're basically on this island, very narrative-heavy. But you're on this island. They're fantastic narration. It's one of those games where if you like a good narrator, chef's kiss. It's one of those games that winds up being in the top 100. It rarely cracks anybody's top 10, but
Sure.
it certainly is a upper game because I think it particularly focuses so heavily on the narrative aspect, that it's a great example if you ever have that person in your life who's skeptical about like video games and what good are they. I like keeping this sort of little library to myself of games that I'm just like, okay, this is a game you should play. Games on that list: Dear Esther, Thomas Was Alone, Return of the Obra Dinn. These are all fantastic games, and Dear Esther is one that, yeah, if you, a gamer who loves games, are catching any pushback from somebody who's just like, I don't know if games are really art, something like this is a great game to win over even the most skeptical of people, because it's very not fast-paced. It's very easy for somebody who's not used to video games. You know, there's so much like language, right, Mr. Nice Guy, that you and I instinctively understand. Sure. Like, you put dual analog controls in our hands, you don't have to tell us that one moves your viewpoint and the other moves your position. We just know. You don't need to tell us which button to press, aside from just being like, oh, push this button. You tell us that once, we've got it. The muscle memory's there. Oh, now we know X is to do everything.
Yes.
Things like that. But for people who aren't very much in that, a slower paced game, a slower thing like that really helps them see the appeal of games. Very much narrative focused, very low stakes. Highly recommend for that purpose. Another one released in 2013 for the PC called Don't Starve. Very much a survival game, has a certain Tim Burton-esque vibe to it.
Yep.
While I cannot confirm that the music is written by Danny Elfman, it absolutely feels like it was written by Danny Elfman. Mr. Nice Guy, I don't think we've ever played Don't Starve together, but have you played this one?
You know what's funny? The way that you said that could be interpreted two ways, because there's literally a game called Don't Starve Together.
Yeah, it's the multiplayer version of Don't Starve.
Yeah, so I have played Don't Starve very, very briefly. I'm trying to think if it came out in 2014, because I feel like it was one of the first games that I got when I got my PS4. Because it was just like, I believe it was just free. So I played a little bit of it, but not a ton. That's never been my genre.
Nice Guy, I should get to the real bell of the ball.
Let's hear it.
With 1999 Super Smash Bros. Mr. Nice Guy, who is your favorite character from the original Super Smash Bros?
I've always been a Link guy.
Same.
I love using Link, and I feel like he's the most versatile of all the characters. Like, he's not the best at jumping, but he has a solid jump. Oh, and by the way, his third jump, his up B, is a counter. So that if you're trying to get back on the edge of the map, you're not just jumping into an attack, right? You can hit away some projectiles. Speaking of projectiles, he has multiple. He has an arrow, he has a bomb, and he has a boomerang. And his sword move is just, the sword smash is just phenomenal. Like, so much good stuff you can do. And this game, Mac, changed my life, right?
Yeah.
So just like in 20 seconds, like... You know, it was one of the games outside of like a GoldenEye or a Gauntlet Legends where you could have a legitimate, get together with a bunch of friends and just play this for hours and hours and hours. And you could customize the match so that certain items were not available, so that you were playing on Final Destination or on other maps. And it was gaming at its finest when it came out.
Fantastic. So I have to ask, Mr. Nice Guy, any real top level gamer can make any character in the field work for them.
Yeah.
The balance good in Super Smash Bros. But I do have to ask, you obviously are picking Link every time. What character did you always regret seeing somebody pick, computer or otherwise, the most? When you saw some other character coming onto the field, you're just like, who's that for you?
Someone who could play and it's ironic because it's the villain that Link goes against, someone who could play a really, really good Ganondorf. He just racks up the damage extremely quickly and can grab you and hold you and throw you up and just counter Link really, really well. Someone who can do him. He's slow, but if you're good with him, he's hard to beat.
Well, today we pay tribute, of course, to Super Smash Bros. A game changed Mr. Nice Guy's life. I have many fond feelings of it as well. A fantastic beat-em-up game, and one that's thought favorably amongst I think most all gamers anywhere, fairly universal. But those are just some of the great games that came out this last week in years before.
Love it. Well, Mac, now it's time for a segment I'm excited for today called Topic of the Week, where we talk about something relevant in gaming and give our opinions. And this one is a Maction special. This is a topic that Mac is very well versed in because it's about a game that you have played, but I have not played. So I'm excited to get your perspective. This is on Eurogamer.net, written by Matt Wales. Matt writes, developer Larian Studios has officially bid a fond farewell to Baldur's Gate 3, following April's massive Update 8 patch. With the team now focusing on the future, company boss Sven Vinke, I hope I pronounced that correctly, has shared a little more on why they ultimately decided against releasing a paid DLC expansion for the acclaimed RPG, calling it the boring option. Mac, before I continue, were you aware of this, that they're not releasing DLC for Baldur's Gate 3?
Yes.
Okay. Vinke first addressed the idea of Baldur's Gate 3 DLC way back in September 2023, around a month after the game launched, to a stellar critical and commercial reception. At the time, he said building on the base game would be very hard for the team, but not undoable. But just 5 months later, all fan hopes for DLC were dashed when Vinke confirmed the studio was going to move on, meaning no DLC and no Baldur's Gate 4. Quote, "We are not a company that's made to create DLC expansions," he explained. "We tried that actually a few times and we failed every time. It's not our thing. Life is too short and our ambitions are large." Mac, I think that really summarizes this very, very well. As a fan of the game, are you heartbroken at the idea of something that I assumed you like, you can tell the viewers how you felt about the game, ending without any additional expansions? How do you feel?
I feel okay about it. It's a game that between myself and my spouse, we've put probably 400 hours into. It's a game that we've played through a couple of times, that has a good deal of replayability and also plenty of secrets to find. There are whole sections of it that when I was playing through it, I was just like, oh, okay, that I found later on that I had completely skipped over. And didn't even know were there. Hours of additional content. I think that the DLC definitely isn't what I would say necessary, just because of how much there is in there and how much people are still discovering. I once upon a time watched a YouTube video about Baldur's Gate 3, and now every time I open I'm getting all these notifications for, oh, we just discovered a new thing in Baldur's Gate 3 and a new thing still to this day, even after being Game of the Year. So I don't think as though it suffers from a lack of content, as opposed to an experience that maybe is just 8 to 10 hours. I think what we walked away with for Baldur's Gate 3, I am glad that I paid around, I guess it was like $60 or whatever. I'm glad that I got as much from that $60. Arguably, it was a steal for that, those dollars to hours. But the game has been fantastic. And, has helped a lot of people. There's somebody I was working with who had never played D&D, but he was playing Baldur's Gate 3 and having a great time of it. I was just like, you're basically playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're just doing less of the math yourself because the computer's doing all the math for you. But yeah, it's the same classes, it's the same everything, and it's a great game.
Yeah, so I don't know. So here's where I stand with this. First of all, I respect that they are saying we are not good at this. We're not going to try to do it. I also don't know that I agree.
Okay.
I don't think that you make so here's the thing. You make a game, and then it expands in scope, right? They didn't just make a game that people put 400 plus hours into. They made something small, and then they built on it, and they built on it, and they built on it, and eventually it became this massive thing. And so I can't help but think that they have the ability and the skill set to create something else that would also do that in the form of DLC. Now, from a money perspective, Mac, I appreciate what they're doing, because a lot of people do this. They make a game, and then they make a DLC, and then they make another one, and let's say they're mediocre. And then they say, well, now we can release a version of the game with the DLC a year and a half later. And so I respect that they're not doing that, but I think that this is a game that was so iconic that, for lack of a better term, I feel like they almost owe it to the community to put out something else as a swan song. Elden Ring did it.
True. And who knows, maybe Larian Studios might be stealth releasing something, kind of like how we had that stealth release of a certain thing recently that I will not say right now. But like, yeah, there could entirely be something like that in the works. However, there is a very robust modding community, and we do have some people working on, story mods for for Baldur's Gate, adding more content. There's a lot of good bones there and some place to go. But I don't know. I feel like I got done with my 3-course meal. Baldur's Gate has 3 acts. I got done with my 3-course meal, and I sat back from the table and I thought, that was fantastic. I didn't feel like I needed more after playing it. I don't fault them for not wanting to, or for not putting out DLC, paid or otherwise.
I would use as a counterpoint Skyrim.
Okay.
Or almost any of the Fallout games where, I just played the base game and this is amazing, but I'm really, really grateful that you put out some more DLC, Bethesda, for Fallout 4 and for Fallout New Vegas and for Fallout 3. And every single time that you put out an awesome game like that, I know that you're going to put out an expansion, and it makes it even better. But I understand, like, we're not fully in agreement here. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, so maybe if and when I do, I would agree with you.
I mean, I think when you play it, it'll be tough to put it down for a while, because there's just that much there. But who knows? I think it definitely isn't the best move from a money standpoint, for sure, because I think most of us would definitely have paid $15 for a DLC that added a few hours worth of content. I mean, heck, I think people would pay some money just to be able to romance a few of the other NPCs alone. But yeah, it certainly is a good experience, a good game, and there's a reason it won Game of the Year.
So I got to ask you one more question before we move on. So
yeah,
they not only did they say no more DLC or no DLC for this game, no paid DLC, they also said they're not going to work on Baldur's Gate 4. How do you feel about this? And this is a theme. Let me just give you some context. Neil Druckmann said something similar. And I believe he said that every project he works on as if it could be his last. Meaning he wants to make sure that it's great. Last of Us Part 2, not, the Uncharted games, right? Many of them are considered masterpieces, albeit controversial. How do you feel about them taking the same approach with Baldur's Gate 3, given how big of a release it was? No Baldur's Gate 4. You okay with that, Mac? You look like you're in pain.
I'm very much in pain, It's so rough because I didn't play Baldur's Gate 1 or Baldur's Gate 2. Frankly, most of the Dungeons & Dragons based video games I have not enjoyed or appreciated. I've thought that they really paled in comparison to, I was just like, why would I play the game? I'll just play the real thing and have better options and have more fun. Yeah. Baldur's Gate 3 was the first take on the game that I felt like actually produced results that I thought were compelling enough to be like, yeah, this is good, this works, this is great. It has so many more options, and I would love to see what they could have done for Baldur's Gate 4. I think they would have knocked it out of the park. But also, who knows? Maybe just the idea of how many thousands of hours they would have to put in to make a Baldur's Gate 4 and to live up to, to the shoes that they had, or to live up to the reputation that they had built. I don't know as I would want to be staring down that monumental responsibility personally.
It's tough, man, and game development has become more and more long. I'll end on this. We're going way over. I think back to a game like Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2. They're objectively masterpieces. And then you get a game like Back 4 Blood, great game, but it just can't live up to what those other ones were. And so sometimes it's best to leave the IP alone and not try to recreate it and resurrect it and just, retire and stay in retirement. So that has been... Oh, anything else, Mac?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like when I decided to, when I hit a home run and then retired from baseball with a perfect batting average.
We all remember that day. It was a great day in gaming and sports history. That has been our topic of the week.
All right, well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. This is a little thing called Lose Lagoon. Mr. Nice Guy, I am sure it will evoke some very familiar vibes. In general, this is two heaping tablespoons of Tailspin, I would say, in video game form. This is what it reminds me of. They're looking for $11,000, which they've already exceeded, and still has 18 days left to go to make this game. The idea is that you are flying your seaplane around the islands, through the sky, completing challenges, and making deliveries amongst the islands. It's a cute little game. It has this sort of... I don't know if we'd call it I don't know if it's quite cell shading, but it definitely has a vibe similar to what I remember from Wind Waker.
Sure.
Little bit cartoony, little bit color splashy. They're looking for 25 euros or about $29 US for a digital copy of this game to be delivered on or around March of 2026. So only about 11 months out. Mr. Nice Guy, I don't know what else to say aside from how cute it is and how much it makes me think of Tailspin.
The vibe, if I was going to describe this game, it looks to me almost like an Animal Crossing in 3D. But like way more cutesy.
Very cutesy.
And so to me, there's really not a lot about this game that excites me.
Oh.
I do get the Wind Waker vibe, and I honestly thought that before you said it out loud. Oh, by the way, we're not acknowledging the chat at all. I apologize. Gee, welcome. And I just am now seeing all the comments you're making that I would have been reading had I been paying attention. Thank you for being here. This is not a game that excites me at all. Just seeing this, Mac. How do you feel about it, though?
Tailspin has such a place in my heart that when I saw this and saw what was going on and tried a little bit of the demo, that I was just like, absolutely, this is 100% a single-player exploration game where I get to fly around a seaplane, make deliveries, do a little bit of just explore beautiful islands. Heck yeah. This game excited me. The demo was fun to play, and I mean, I know we don't always agree on everything, but this is one that actually absolutely captured my heart. Even if it wormed its way in there through nostalgia, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I get it. This one for me, and I can't quite put my finger on why, Mac. It's not a game for me.
Okay. Totally cool.
I guess I'll also say this, like, just to be objective.
Yeah.
Or maybe subjective, because I don't want it to be like, oh, that's not my thing, so it sucks. What do you think about the price point here? $30?
Objectively, it's a little high priced for a game of this length. There's only going to be about 4 islands in it. Now, I am a little bit cautiously optimistic that with their stretch goals, that they'll wind up expanding the islands as they break those stretch goals, and that we'll wind up with more content, which hopefully doesn't push the release date back that much farther. But it is on the higher end. But I don't know, Mr. Nice Guy. I just love Tailspin so much that I can't help myself.
Do you really love Tailspin that much?
I do. Oh, Tailspin.
I liked Tailspin. It's fine. I think there's a couple good Tailspin video games on either NES or Game Boy. But interesting. I didn't know that about you.
I always imagined that I would be the one sailing behind on the little air board. I'd be the one, air cloud skiing behind. Don Carnage. When we got the DuckTales, when we got new DuckTales, and Don Carnage showed up, and we got that sort of Tailspin crossover.
Yep.
Practically fainted, my dude. I was fanboying so hard. I was like that character in Last Airbender, foaming at the mouth and fainting with my fanboying. So
I am learning all kinds of new things about Mac today. This is awesome. Well, Mac, anything else to say about this? It's a kick for me, but shout out to you if you want it.
Yeah, it's a kickstart for me, and if something that seems a little Animal Crossing-ish, a little Wind Waker, and a whole lot of Tailspin sounds interesting to you, Lose Lagoon might just be the thing for you.
Well, not for me, but I'm happy for you. Well, now it's time for a returning segment that we do every week. I've been gone for a couple weeks. Give me a break, y'all. Called Nerd Flex. Woo-hoo. Shout out to Ruckus for trying to do my singing last week in the episode. Appreciate that. And he did a great job at it.
Absolutely.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Mac and I use nothing but our noggins to answer gaming-related multiple-choice questions. We also have a test bank of random trivia questions that we can answer when people are feeling shy in the chat. So if you're here live, you have a job to do. Please put a multiple-choice gaming-related question in the chat. And if not, Mac and I will start with this first question that comes from the test bank, Mac, and this is a special round.
Woo.
It's not going to be hard, but it's name 3 games released in the 80s. Name 3 games released in the 80s.
Well, anything for the Atari 2600, so that's Pitfall. That's Adventure. We can also do anything for the NES, Mega Man, Duck Hunt, Mario Bros.
Yeah. We could go arcade even.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Miss Pac-Man was probably released in the 80s. Space Invaders, I would imagine, was an 80s game. Donkey Kong, probably an 80s game.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. DuckTales 1 and 2. We could even throw out a few early Game Boy games, like your favorite, Super Mario Land.
I love that game. 1989, baby.
So, yeah, I think we crushed it.
It's so crazy to me that game came out in the 80s. I still play it regularly.
I know, right?
Like my Analog Pocket, a good chunk of my time is playing that cartridge. And I love having the physical cart. Well, let's flip this over and see what the ones are that they have listed here. Okay, so here's some examples. And only one of the ones we named is on here. But they have Pong, Asteroids, Donkey Kong, and Prince of Persia.
Oh, yeah, Prince of Persia would have been.
All right, well, on to the next randomized question. Okay, interesting. This is a Nintendo question. Where on Samus's body does she have a beauty spot? And Mac, I gotta say, this is, well, maybe you know, but I feel like you'd have to be super into Metroid lore to know this, because Samus is in a suit the majority of the time.
Very true. But usually when people say beauty spots, I've only ever heard it in relation, on the face, kind of on the cheek, near the mouth, very like Marilyn Monroe, right?
Well, let's go face. I think that you're probably correct. We're going to go with that final answer. Okay. Now, it gets a little bit more specific because we went broad, but the answer is just under her mouth, which is the answer.
I think you did literally, and for those of you who are not seeing it,
here.
Yeah, he does point to below his mouth when he was talking about the beauty spots. So like, it's implied. I know you, dear listeners, can't see it, but the video will exonerate Mr. Nice Guy as being innocent of these crimes.
Appreciate that. Not a lawyer, but he plays one on a pod. Last question of the week. And I don't know the answer to this, but who voices Duke Nukem, Mac? I'm excited to find out who it is. If it's a name that I've heard of.
Complete shot in the dark, Tim Curry.
I'm going to go Billy Mitchell, final answer. John St. John. I don't know who that is, but shout out to John St. John for voicing one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. And that has been Nerdflex.
All right, well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
Mr. Nice Guy, I've got an interesting one for us.
I'm ready to hear it.
As we all know, I'm not a lawyer. Just play one here on a podcast, as Mr. Nice Guy so eloquently said just a couple of minutes ago. What we've got is we've got a bit of a back and forth between Epic Games, makers of Fortnite, as well as a company called Utherverse Gaming, right? And Utherverse Gaming has been trying to basically sue Epic Games over their use of things that Utherverse says they have patents over. Now, specifically what's at issue is what they have done several times with these concerts in Fortnite. You know, they've had these concerts with like Marshmello and can you think of any of the others, Nice Guy?
I'm pretty sure they had one with they did one with Travis Scott.
Travis Scott, yeah. And also I think they did one with Ariana Grande as well. But they've done, you know, some big names in these concerts. And have you ever attended any of these, Mr. Nice Guy?
I have not. I'm pretty sure my kids have. I do know Eminem was in the game, but don't know if he did a concert. So I haven't attended any of them.
Well, they've certainly had these concerts, and basically the idea is that you're basically in the concert, you're watching it happen, there's usually a visual component, but there's usually tons and tons of people there. Well, at issue here is that Utherverse claims that they've got some patents over the specific technological methods of putting a lot of people in the virtual space together. They cite 4 different patents, and I don't want to bore y'all, especially as we're going over time here, of the specifics. But they're like, hey, we've got patents over A, B, C, and D, and these all specifically relate because this one's about how you fit so many people in and how you can deal with bandwidth issues and and so on.
Yeah.
One of the fun and interesting things about a lawsuit like this is that if you do actually get beyond the just cease and desist thing and you actually get into court, courts can find that your patents are invalid or should never have been granted in the first place. Like, strictly speaking, the patent office isn't supposed to give you a patent over the digital method of putting things in a file folder, because that is something that is just like, you know, duh. And they're not supposed to give it to you in the first place. So you walk into court and you say, Mr. Nice Guy is infringing on my patent of putting things in a file folder. The patent office can be like, you know, they should have really never given you this in the first place. Denied. And you walk out of there with less property than you had when you walked in.
Right.
And that's definitely an interesting thing in patents. So I am curious to see how this goes. So far, all that we've got is, you know, we've got a little bit of the back and forth, but they are headed for a jury trial because they started this back in, you know, 2020 or so. But they finally have a jury trial of May 12th, so it's coming up next month. I'll keep you updated, but it will be interesting to see if these patents hold up and if there is any expectation at the far end of Epic to pay. That's not the law, but it is some legalese.
I like it, Mac. I like it. And that has been our show. But before we go, we have one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about just that. And for the sake of time, Mac and I are just going to talk through it. If y'all are watching cool stuff, hit us up, message us, email us, let us know what you're watching. Mac, what have you been watching and playing?
So as for playing, I finished off Tunic while I was on the trip home from visiting you. I sat in on a few games of Spiritfarer. I have also been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3 lately.
Nice.
And that's most of what I've been playing. As for watching, I've just been watching a couple of movies here and there. I rewatched Knives Out Glass Onion. Oh gosh, what else did I watch? Anyway, I've watched a couple of random movies here and there, and then just a little bit of the good old reliable Taskmaster. How about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
So probably the coolest thing I'm watching right now, there's really 2 shows that I've been into. The first is Fear the Walking Dead. Really have been enjoying that. I'm on season 2.
Nice.
And it's scratching that itch. You know, it's weird when you read a comic book or a graphic novel and you're into the show because of that, and then they make a spin-off and the characters are unfamiliar, but you find yourself getting into that too. So that's been cool. The coolest show I'm watching right now that I'm really enjoying is The Last of Us season 2. And it's been super interesting to watch the gaming community, the nerd community, make the same mistakes that we made 5 years ago, which is that of trolling the people who have been paid and who have earned the right to play these characters and being disrespectful towards them. And I wanted to talk about this on the front end of the show, but I decided, if you've gotten this far, you really like what we do, stop doing that.
Yes.
There's absolutely no reason. Like, every time I hop on Reddit, this poor girl who plays Ellie is just being disrespected beyond any rational level. And it's so disgusting to me. And usually when you see this, there's a few people who pop in and like, hey, guys, that's not cool. No, it's just a dog pile. Leave the girl alone. Let her act.
Yes.
I don't care what she looks like.
Yes.
Even if she's not the best actress for Ellie, that's fine. Like, there's no reason to attack her the way people are attacking her.
Look, nice guy, I'm going to go one further with you. I'm going to say this. Look, people in glass houses should not be throwing stones. We are not the best looking people ever.
Speak for yourself. I'm just kidding.
We are also not the best acting people either. Yeah, if you think the number of people, people were asked, like, hey, could you score a point on Serena Williams? Like 90% of just random dudes who'd never done a day of cardio in their life were like, yeah, I could score a point on Serena Williams. No, you could not. You do not possess that talent. Also, she is a way better actor than you, and she is crushing it. Don't come for somebody else. People will come for you too, okay?
Right.
As gamers, we need to be better and recognize that just because the rest of the world sometimes looks at us as a group and is just like, oh, you're never gonna amount to anything. It's just like, why have you got to dish that negativity back out?
Right.
We are a group that should be welcoming people in, and she is destroying that role and doing a great job at it, and we should feel ashamed. Shame, I say. Shame. That's my rant.
It's frustrating to see as a reasonable human being and also as a father.
Yeah.
And husband. Like, it's just not how you treat people.
Yeah.
Even in the void that is the internet. So anyway, I've been watching The Last of Us Season 2, and I have been enjoying it. Well done to the actors and actresses on the show. And as far as playing, lots of Analog Pocket stuff and a little bit of Call of Duty. Mac, why don't you take us home, sir?
All right, thanks everybody for coming out to the show, for helping make episode 340 what it was. We do this most every week on Mondays here at twitch.tv/2nerds in a pod. And of course, please leave a 5-star rating on the podcast catcher of your choice, but also feel free to join us for the live show. Get the questions in, try and stump us with your nerdy trivia as well. We appreciate you. We hope that you had a fun time. And remember to be excellent to each other, including the amazing actors in Last of Us Season 2. And keep it nerdy, y'all. Bye.
Deuces. See ya.